I ruined my perfect family when my husband caught me cheating with my boss and went to prison. Now, 7 years later, he's out, and I'm all alone with my kids hating me. I'm a selfish person. At least that is what I say to myself repeatedly almost every night when I hear the silence in my home. My children aren't here. My ex-husband hates me for a good reason. My immediate family is divided, and I never stopped hating myself for what I did. My selfish act happened in 2015. I had just turned 39, and I admit I took my ex-husband for granted. My ex always told me that I was beautiful on a daily basis, always wanted to be in bed with me, always took care of me, and treated me like his equal. He never treated me like a queen or a princess. I was his partner. We've been married for 20 years by that time. High school sweethearts, each other's one and only, and it felt right. My family loved him, my brother looked up to him, and my ex helped him through a lot of tough situations. My ex was the one people called when they were in trouble, and he helped them. He was a good man. Through the years, I gave him 2 headstrong boys. At the time of this, they were 18. I was conscious of my weight and felt self-conscious, and he would tell me that I was beautiful. Our arguments were always few and far between. We talked everything out, but when we did argue, it was usually about the time in bed or lack thereof on my behalf and the things I refused to do in bed. It wasn't as if I didn't want to do them. It's just that I wasn't in the mood, and he understood. When I turned 39, my birthday party revealed the new me. I spent all year in the gym doing yoga and Pilates. My effort transformed me. I had always been a chubby girl, so to have a body that was tight and fit was a new experience. My ex-husband also went to the gym with me, but not as much. However, he went from 260 to 225 and was starting to shape his body. My ex-husband couldn't keep his hands off me, but for some reason, I still wasn't in the mood. It's not like he didn't try. We went to dinners, danced, and did regular walks. He always helped around the house, and I could see in his eyes how much he loved me. 20 years together, and he still looked at me with desire. I believed any woman would desperately want that, but mentally, I just wasn't in the mood. At the time, I thought I was going through early menopause since we only made love 2 or maybe 3 times a month, and I was just a one and done. But he wanted more, and no matter how much he tried, I just wasn't into it. He mentioned couple counseling, and I refused. So now my selfishness comes into play. A new manager started working in my office a few days after my birthday. He was slightly younger and handsome, and for some reason, he took an interest in me. At first, I ignored him. Then it went from ignoring to casual conversation. Then he flirted, and I showed him my ring. However, after 2 months of constant flirting, I flirted back, which led to me telling him about my life. I found myself thinking about him more and more. This was an emotional affair. I know that now, but at the time, I felt high. My ex-husband suspected there was something off with me. We had a heated argument about it, one that I honestly believe I started. He went to kiss me, and I subconsciously made a disgusted look. It wasn't towards my ex. I was thinking about this man when he leaned in, and I felt disgusted with the whole thing. At least that is what I say to myself. A week after that day, I told the new manager to meet me at a cafe so he could talk. I had every intention to tell this man to leave me alone, to tell him that I couldn't do this. But before I could say anything to him, he kissed me and my mind went blank. That was the beginning of our 6-month affair. During that time, I did things with this man that my ex wanted. I was more eager, more willing. I was always in the mood. I believe it was because it was something new. My ex and I did make love during this time, but not as frequently. I began pushing him away, nitpicking on the little habits. I even belittled him. I'm ashamed of how I treated him during that time. I only realized what I was doing when my brother came to visit me and told me that my ex confided in him about how depressed he was feeling and was thinking about filing for separation. He said he felt that I didn't love him anymore. He was starting to fall out of love with me. That snapped me out of it. So I immediately called it off, quit my job, and told myself that I was going to make my husband feel loved and wanted. I was going to fix this. I was going to be a better wife if I could. My affair partner showed up at my house with a box of my office stuff that I requested to have shipped. We spoke. He wanted to know what he did wrong, and I told him that I needed to fix my marriage. I told him to leave, and he wanted one last go around. I told him no, but he begged, pleaded, and like a fool, I agreed. We went to the guest room and went at it. I do not know how long we were doing it, but when he was on top of me, I felt him throb back, and there was a loud bang. I sat up, and my ex was looking at me. My affair partner was on the floor, and there was a large hole in the wall. I tried to say something to my ex, but his eyes were bloodshot. Tears were flowing, and his lips were trembling. I could see he was in so much pain, and I felt so disgusted. I watched as my affair partner stood up and attempted to leave. My ex looked at him, and my affair partner told him that if he knew what was good for him, he would step back. So my ex attacked him. I screamed and cried, telling my ex to stop. Out of desperation, I jumped on his back, which resulted in me getting slimed to the floor. Everything got hazy for a while. Words sounded muffled. When I came through, my ex had my affair partner on his side and was on the phone. All I could do was stare at my affair partner's swollen face and the blood and teeth on the floor beside him. There was a loud bang on the door, and I watched my ex put the phone on speaker, slowly placed it on the floor, dropped to his knees, and placed his hands on the back of his head. The door opened, and the police came in and handcuffed him. The paramedics came in moments later. I soon learned that he called 911 on himself. Everything went to hell in a handbasket at the hospital. My father didn't utter a word to me. He just looked at me with shame. My brother was yelling at me. He looked crushed, asking me how I could do that to my ex. My mother was consoling me, telling me that it was all right, which caused my father to yell at her. His family was furious. His sisters threatened me, and his parents looked like they wanted to send me to an early grave. I approached my children, and they refused to speak to me. My sons couldn't even look at me. My affair partner was heavily injured and needed reconstructive surgery on his face. My ex practically shattered his face. At the hospital, a woman came to my room and immediately attacked me. My brother pulled her off me, and it turned out she was my affair partner's wife. I didn't know he was married. He never wore a ring, never once said anything. It made me feel even more terrible. Part 2 will be out very soon, so stay tuned.